Ever get that feeling, scrolling through the news and you're like, hold on, is this real life right now?
Happens to the best of us. What is it today? Some wild international scandal.
Pretty much. Well, minus the international part. We're diving into U.S. election law changes, Georgia specifically. And let me tell you, there's enough drama here to fuel a whole season of, like, a political thriller.
This can be good. Lay it on me.
So, we're basing this deep dive on a new article out of Mother Jones, and they're usually pretty solid with their investigations.
Yeah, I've read a few of their pieces. They don't mess around.
Exactly. So, buckle up. This one's about the Georgia State Election Board. Now, quick thing for context, they're currently, like, dominated by Trump-aligned Republicans.
Okay, already sounds like a recipe
Yeah,
for something.
right. And it gets better. Just a few weeks out from the presidential election, they decide to pass this whole bunch of new voting rules.
Oh boy. And I'm guessing this didn't go over too well.
You could say that. Accusations of voter suppression, talk about election rigging, it all blew up pretty fast.
I mean, that close to an election, I can't say I'm surprised. What are the rules, though? That's the juicy part.
Oh, we're getting there. But even the timing's fishy, right? Like, why wait to the last minute if these rules were on the up and up?
Yeah, it doesn't exactly scream transparency, does it?
Not really. But the real kicker, the thing everyone's freaking out about, it's this rule about hand counting every single ballot cast on election day.
Wait, seriously? Every single one?
Yeah.
I thought we were past this.
Apparently not in Georgia. And look, I'm no election expert, but even I know they usually only do hand counts for auditing after the machines, right?
You're exactly right. Hand counts are meant to double-check the electronic count, not be the main event, especially not in a state with as many voters as Georgia. To mandate it statewide, weeks before a presidential election, no less, that is raising some serious red flags.
Red flags like what? I mean, yeah, it sounds like a huge mess waiting to happen, but is counting by hand really that different from using machines?
It's a way bigger deal than you might think. For one, hand counts are notoriously slow and labor-intensive. We're talking potentially thousands of people, each ballot meticulously examined and counted. And people.
Yeah.
Well, we make mistakes, especially when we're tired, stressed, dealing with mountains of paperwork. It's just human nature.
So you're saying more room for error compared to electronic counting?
Exactly. But it goes even deeper than that. This rule change, it plays right into the whole narrative we've been hearing about voting machines being unreliable. That whole rigged election conspiracy theory.
Ugh, that's still going around. I thought that had been, like, thoroughly debunked.
It has been, repeatedly. But the article points out that hasn't stopped some people from using that theory to justify all sorts of stricter voting measures, even if those measures might actually make things less secure. Crazy, right?
So it's not even really about the hand count itself, is it? It's about pushing this narrative that you can't trust the system, creating chaos, and then swooping in to challenge the results no matter what the actual vote count says.
You're getting it. And what's really interesting here is the pushback this new rule is getting. And not just from the usual suspects either. Even some big-name Republicans are waving red flags on this one.
Wait, really? I figured this whole election integrity thing had become so partisan that even if some Republicans had gouts...
Oh no, they're speaking up. Loudly. The article specifically calls out Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger.
Oh, right, the I just want to find 11,780 votes guy. Didn't Trump try to pressure him to overturn the 2020 result?
That's the one. And even Raffensperger's calling these new rules likely illegal and, I quote, poorly timed.
Which is probably a polite way of saying, what are you people smoking?
Pretty much. And he's not alone. A lot of Republican election officials across the state are coming out against this whole hand count mandate. And it's not about partisan politics for them either. It's pure logistics. They're saying they don't have the time, the resources, the trained people to make a change this huge just weeks before a major election. Imagine trying to, train thousands of volunteers to do brain surgery, but all you've got is a YouTube video and, 3 days notice. That's basically what we're talking about.
Yeah, that analogy is terrifying, but effective. So, bipartisan pushback, potential legal problems, logistical nightmare. You'd think they'd just scrap this whole thing, right?
You'd hope. But it gets weirder. The article quotes John Furvier, he's the Republican chair of the Georgia State Election Board, as saying, and I quote, "This is not supported at all in statute." He's admitting, right there, that their own rule change has no legal basis.
Okay, my head is spinning. We've got a rule change even its creators admit isn't legal, could cause huge delays and confusion, and is opposed by people on both sides. What's the goal here even?
$1 million question. We can't say for sure, but the article throws out a possibility that is kind of chilling. What if any delays, any errors that happen because of this hand count are then used as an excuse to challenge, maybe even completely refuse to certify the election results in Georgia, especially if a Democrat wins?
So it's like they're intentionally creating a problem they can then point to and be like, see, told you it was rigged.
Bingo. And unfortunately, there's precedent for exactly this kind of move. The article talks about something that went down in Cochise County, Arizona, back in 2022.
Okay. Refresh my memory on that. What happened?
So the election board in Cochise County, also Republican-dominated, decides they want to do a full hand count of the ballots, even though, and this is important, the courts had explicitly said it was illegal. And guess what? Massive delays. And when Democrats won a few key races by a slim margin, the board refused to certify the results.
So chaos, confusion, and then straight up trying to overturn what voters actually decided.
You got it. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the two Republican board members behind it all ended up indicted for obstructing the vote counting.
Wow. So this isn't just some hypothetical. There's a playbook, and it's already been used to mess things up.
Exactly.
Hmm.
That's what makes this Georgia situation so unsettling. It's like they studied what not to do and then decided, hold my beer.
Okay, so we've talked about Georgia, but this whole hand count push seems to be spreading. People talk about it like it's this more secure, more reliable way to count votes. But is that actually true?
That's the thing, isn't it? People hear hand count and they think, oh, we're going back to basics, no more of those fancy machines, every vote will be counted right. But it's not that simple.
So break it down for me. What's the deal with hand counts, really?
Well, studies have consistently found that hand counts are actually way more prone to errors than machine counts are.
Hold up, seriously, how is that even possible?
Us, people, we get tired, we zone out, we misread things. It's just what humans do. Machines, though, they're great at doing the same thing over and over without messing up. They don't get bored or distracted, don't accidentally fill in the wrong bubble because their hand slipped.
So the things that make us human, our flaws, basically, make us bad at counting votes.
It's kind of ironic, right? And the article brought up this wild example from Nye County, Nevada.
Oh, right. That rings a bell. Vaguely. Remind me what happened there again.
So Nye County, same county that tried that hand count audit back in 2020, and it was such a mess they had to stop. Well, in 2022, Republicans there pushing again for a hand count, they decided to give it another go. First day of counting, 25% error rate.
25%? You think they were counting jelly beans, not, votes that decide our future.
I know, right? And it just shows, even with the best intentions, people make mistakes. The courts ended up having to shut down the Nye County effort because it was so clearly inaccurate.
It's kind of wild when you think about it, because whether you're left, right, center, whatever, we all want the election results to be accurate.
100%. That's the whole foundation of a working democracy. And here's where things get tricky. I think a lot of people, and I'm not talking about those pushing an agenda here, I mean everyday voters, they genuinely believe hand counts are more secure, that it's the way to make sure their vote counts.
I can see that. We're bombarded with so much info, especially around elections, it's hard to know what to trust.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this whole thing so dangerous. This push for hand counts, it's often framed as this way to increase transparency, to make elections more trustworthy. But it could actually do the opposite. Instead of making things more secure, it could lead to less accurate results and create the exact chaos and distrust it claims to prevent.
So we've got this situation in Georgia, these last-minute rule changes, the potential for things to go really wrong, really slow, and then this whole fight over election integrity looming over everything. It's a lot, even for someone who follows this stuff closely.
It really highlights how tough it is, trying to balance the right to vote, having secure elections, and fighting all the misinformation out there. Because that misinformation is designed to make people doubt the system.
And this isn't just a Georgia problem, is it? This feels bigger.
It is bigger. This is about the foundation of our democracy. What's happening in Georgia, it shows how important it is for all of us to be paying attention, being informed, and frankly, being ready to protect the integrity of how we vote.
No pressure, right. But seriously, where do we even start? How do we wrap our heads around all this when even something like counting votes becomes a battleground?
It starts with thinking critically. Don't just take anything you hear or read at face value, especially when it comes to elections.
Easier said than done these days, though, right?
True, we're drowning in info from all sides, but not all information is created equal. Look for trustworthy sources. Be careful with those clickbaity headlines or social media posts, and don't be afraid to double-check what you see. There's some great resources out there to help you sort fact from fiction, especially with elections.
It's like that saying, trust but verify.
Exactly. And talk to people, your friends, family, coworkers, even that one relative who shares those kind of iffy articles online. Have real conversations, share what you're learning, listen to different points of view. You never know what you might learn or who you might end up helping to understand things a little better.
Because at the end of the day, this is about way more than just one election, one state, one political party even. It's about protecting the system that lets us have these conversations in the first place.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And it starts with each of us being informed, engaged, and willing to stand up for what we believe in.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. We've talked about how hand counting ballots, it's prone to errors, it's a logistical headache, and honestly, in this day and age with the secure technology we have, it's unnecessary. So why are some groups pushing for it so hard? What does that say about the state of our elections and the forces at work trying to undermine them? These are the questions I hope you'll keep in mind as we head into this crucial election season.